effective wartime coping strategy eventually landed me in Northampton, Massachusetts VA Hospital's PTSD unit for 3 months. In many ways, the past 50 years have been a reconnaissance mission to locate my feelings and uncover memories frozen in time. As I work this reparative process, I am deeply saddened that the Vietnam War was, among other things, an indiscriminate war against innocents and children. It was, in my opinion, wrong and unnecessary. Recently, I've been collecting gifts washed in by the tide during my daily beach walks with my dog, Ollie. Somehow, these gifts from the sea help me reconnect to lost memories as they become transformed into the tangible thoughts and feelings hanging on the walls of this exquisite room. So this exhibit was at the Martha's Vineyard Museum, just so you know, this is me speaking. And that's what he's saying with the exquisite room. I have no idea how this happened. It's all a great mystery, but I think it has something to do with the healing nature of vineyard waters. I think we all agree with that. Steve Maxner, 2019. It's a lovely artist statement.
Yeah, well, thank you.
And I'm going to go to the first picture. And it looks to me, Steve, like what happens is the picture comes up and underneath is the title. And you can tell me if I'm correct. I'm going to look at Death, the Greatest Teacher.
Right.
So I don't know if you want to talk about this picture.
Well, let me just give just a little bit of background of
yes, go for it.
Of how this all started down here. About 2 years ago, 2 winters ago, I started going to the beach and just collecting shells and things that I thought were interesting to me. And then I'm still in therapy, and it was suggested that maybe I can connect some of these things that I gather, which I gathered quite a few, and turn them into some type of art that has something to do with some of my Vietnam experiences, all in the context of personal healing more than anything. So this was never intended for public showing or demonstration of, my artistic proficiency, which I really feel I'm not an artist. This is more art therapy than anything to me. That's what it is. And then, a year and a half or so ago, somebody, you may know him, his name is Dan Waters. He's a friend of mine, came over and he saw all these things I had hanging on the wall. And he had the idea, well, maybe you should share this at the museum. And then it sort of took on a life of its own, because it was never intended to be shared, and it was never, and still is not monetized. So none of it was ever for sale or is for sale. And it's just sort of more of an expression of some of me connecting to some of my experiences in Vietnam. And this one, looking at it now, Death, the Greatest Teacher, this is important to me just because I feel that I went to Vietnam as a young, strong, patriotic young man just out of college, and I felt that I was doing the right thing. I thought that was my duty, it was my patriotic duty, and it was my duty to my country to do this, to stop communism from ending up in San Francisco. And quickly I learned otherwise. And this particular sculpture, I guess you'd call it, I mean, what you'd call it, just reflects more than anything my contact with death. Because I never really experienced death here in the US. Maybe a grandparent who passed on, but not, and I grew up in a middle class uh, atmosphere, and I lived near the beach, and I had a good life. I was a good student, and I was a good athlete, and I never had any real traumas in my life. So I went to Vietnam thinking that, yeah, I'm doing the right thing, and I'm going to be helping people. I'm going to be helping the South Vietnamese defeat the communist hordes coming down from North Vietnam. And it didn't take long for me to realize that that whole assumption was, in my opinion, inaccurate. And coming in contact with death, and particularly civilians, was extremely upsetting to me, because for all the quote unquote enemy soldiers, the VC or the NVA that were killed in Vietnam, there were many, many more civilians, old people, children, destroyed, killed. And that's what I tried to represent in this piece of sculpture, is that the death taught me that, I have to look at life differently, and I had to examine my own motives, my own thinking about what it means to be an American, what it means to be a patriot. Should I just, what I did was I basically did what I was told and what I thought was right and what was expected of me. And I followed that line all through my school years and sports and in college. I sort of felt that responsibility. And then when I got to Vietnam, I realized that something was amiss, that it didn't jive what I was being told in terms of why we were in Vietnam, America, while America was in Vietnam. And then the horror of seeing so many deaths, again, particularly civilians, that it just stuck with me, and has been a very important theme in my life to this point, where if there's anything I can do to prevent the death of others, I will go out of my way to do that. And death in and of itself, like all of us, we're all, facing it. I'm 77, and so I think about death a lot, just my own death. So but now I'm in a position now where I can sort of prepare for it, which I try to do. And how I personally do that, I meditate a lot. I meditate, maybe 2 hours a day anyway. And that helps calm me more than anything, and helps bring some peace to me and some joy. And the people represented in this particular piece weren't afforded that opportunity. They were either shot or napalmed or bombed or died violently, and some young and some old. So that's sort of what that piece represents.
Thank you for that, Steve. I'm going to move down a little bit so we can see the next one. This is because there's so many pieces in this. So that was that one.
Well, you just do your thing. If I'm talking too much.
No. This is also a lovely piece. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Where are all the birds?
That's just a piece of a boat that washed up after a storm, and I don't know if you can see, but they're all seagulls, supposed to be seagulls. Again, as you can see, I'm not an artist. I didn't, but where I was in Vietnam, there were not any birds. All the birds, because of the constant bombing and artillery and fighting, the birds were smart enough to leave, and they left. And and Vietnam is known for very beautiful birds, particularly their parrots. And where I was, there weren't any. So when I got back home, I painted that because I love birds, and the more the better. And that's what that's all about. It's just sort of in a war zone. Typically, you won't find many birds. Now this isn't. I hope this doesn't destroy your lunch. but a lot. This particular piece is a. How do I explain it? My daughter Jennifer, my oldest daughter, was born while I was in Vietnam, and Joyce taped the birth because she was in a Philadelphia hospital, which allowed it. And at that time, that was unusual. That was like 50 years ago, and hospitals were much more strict. But anyway, she taped the birth, sent me the tape on a little cassette, and I had a tape recorder. And some friends and I sat out on a bunker one night when I got the tape and listened to that tape as actual birth sequence, all the talking and exchange between the doctor and Joyce, and it was, and I still have that. It's a beautiful archive. But anyway, this particular piece, while we were sitting on the bunker, about a half a mile away, there was a battle going on, and the night sky oftentimes in Vietnam was lit up by what's called illumination flares. So the artillery would shoot out these flares out that would burst maybe 100 or 200 yards above the battlefield, and it would light up the whole area. So the helicopters and the people on the ground, the troops on the ground, could see what was going on, who was shooting at who and where they were and all that. And that's what, and they come down, the flares come down in parachutes. It's a light, they come down in parachutes, small parachutes. And that was what this lamp represented.
Cool. Okay. That's very pretty, actually, that lamp. And there's this one. It's called Rebirth.
Right. That's an old piece of a skiff that I found in the one of the ponds, and it just reminds me, with the conch egg cases and the shells, that life goes on, and we experience horrendous things or joyous things, but regardless, life flows like a river, and we're part of that. And for me, knowing that I'm part of that is important, because for a long time I felt that I did not belong for what I did in Vietnam, for my experiences in Vietnam, that I, in fact, was not entitled to any joy in life.
This one has a tough name. Amphibious body bag,
yeah.
but it's beautiful.
Well,
Let me see if I get it full screen. Sorry, it's not really doing what I want it to do here, but there it go. There you go.
Yeah. Well, this just tells a story of I guess I'll just tell you the story is that where I was, there were many rivers and tributaries. And as part of the U.S. arsenal, we had amphibious vehicles. It would go both on water as a boat and on land. It would be able to put down the wheels or draw up the wheels, depending if you're on land or water. And the Viet Cong and the NVA, North Vietnamese regulars, were very, very smart. They were excellent soldiers, and their tactics were superb. And they can't be minimized. That they was a very, very serious adversary. Like they knew exactly what they were doing, and we were fighting in their country, on their land. So they knew the rivers and the jungle better than we did. And what happened in this particular case was this amphibious boat would exit the river to go on land, and it incorrectly, and it was poor judgment on the part of the soldiers, they did it several days in a row, and they left the river in the same place and left marks where they left the river. And the Viet Cong took a bomb, which they had captured from the U.S. After airstrike, of one of the bombs that did not go off, planted it where this amphibious vehicle would exit the river, and watched until it exited it at the right time, and then they detonated it. And that's where the rubber meets the road, really. I mean, you can drop bombs from 30,000 feet and be eating a sandwich, drinking a cup of coffee, and being perfectly safe. And 30,000 feet down, you're killing perhaps hundreds of people. Again, not just soldiers, but primarily civilians. But I had tremendous respect for the North Vietnamese regulars and the Viet Cong, the enemy. And the war was really fought, with, small arms fire and ambushes and strategy to outwit where the enemy's going to be, so you could be there and set up an ambush so you could kill them, or they would do the same thing, set up an ambush so they could kill you. And the point of this particular piece was to, more than anything, to show respect for both sides of the battlefield, and the American soldiers as well as the Vietnamese soldiers who equally fought gallantly. But that is where the war really transpired and became personal.
So I want everyone to know that I'm stopping the share. I've only showed a small piece of this exhibit. I don't know how many pieces are in it, Steve.
Oh, I don't know.
It's huge.
Well, probably 20 or 30, or I make them all the time. It's not something that,
yeah,
it's something that I do and that I enjoy doing.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy the gathering. I enjoy going to the beach with my dog and picking up and learning a lot about the ocean and times a year, what's available and what isn't. And it's getting a little bit more difficult now because it's more difficult to walk, but it's an ongoing project in my life. In fact, I just started a new one yesterday and finished one, a very significant one 2 weeks ago, which the museum has graciously decided to keep in their collection.
Oh, that's
That's
lovely.
great.
Does anyone have any questions for Steve? I mean, I just know that we have we try to end on time, Steve, just because everyone.
Oh, sure.
So otherwise I
I
would
think
have gone
it's,
through. Yeah.
I think it's really good that you found a creative way to, reflect and soothe yourself a bit and hopefully heal a bit too.
Thank you. That's what I do too. Thank you for saying that, because that's really what's an important part to me.
Hi, Steve.
Absolutely.
Thank you for showing that. And did your music play into this therapy of the beach and walking, or is that something separate?
Very, very much so. Very, very, very much so. In fact, I was going to sing a song today for you, but I decided not to do it. That tells that story about me and my dog Ollie walking on the beach picking up stuff, and it tells what I do. But maybe that'll remain for another time.
Yeah,
But
we can do this
But
again.
I'm also in the process now of writing. It's already written, of putting together an album called Keeper of the Tides. And it's music about these experiences. It's just the same thing. Instead of shells and super glue and driftwood, it's music, but same theme.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Eddie, do you have
Yeah.
any questions or?
Awesome job. Thank you for serving overseas. I appreciate that. I was in the service for 2 years and I wanted to go over so bad, but God bless you for helping us out, my boy. Appreciate
Wow.
this. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. It's interesting that let me comment on that, because thank you for your service. To me, it's like I'm a patriotic man, and I believe and I love America, but in Vietnam, I did not at all agree with what we did. So I think I can still be an American and disagree with what happened.
Okay.
I don't think your good intentions had anything to do with with what you ended up doing. You know what I mean?
Yes,
Your intentions were not at all reflected in what you were called upon to do, really.
that's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. I remember
Thank you.
the first night I was there, we Americans had bombed a village and killed some civilians, and I went to the granddaughter brought the grandfather who was dead in on a helicopter. And here, the first day, I'm young, so I went to hug her. This young woman, I don't know, she's probably late teens or early 20s. I went to hug her to console her, and she gave me she drove daggers in my heart, because here's this guy who just killed her grandfather, who's trying to help her, who doesn't know anything, and that's so it's that kind of dilemma.
Yes.
Yeah, it's tough to be aware of, but good to be aware of. All those kind of things. It's hard.
Yeah, it's complex.
It is complex.
Very nice.
Steve, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today and for sharing your art. We're going to have you come back and continue on. I think we got to the grunts, and there's more. There's so many more.
I'd be happy to if you find this in any way
It is
beneficial or useful.
it's good. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
Yeah, thank you.
You all be well. You all be well.